Hey, what's the matter, you?
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountain, growing like a breeze. Country road, take me home. Take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, all my memories gather round her. Miner's lady, stranger to blue water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky. Missed a taste of moonshine, teardrops in my eye. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, take me home. Country roads. Guido!
Guido! Very nice.
Yeah, it's a good song. I love that song. All right. Well, today we got a very important topic. Not doing zombies today. I am doing a topic that I'm researching. Been researching it now for a couple weeks. I actually have a much longer treatment, almost a potential book treatment. But before I do that, I plan on doing sort of like a series of articles. Let me share my screen. And one of the articles is going to be sort of a more detailed version of this. So this is sort of almost a preview on the preview of the article. So can you guys, I assume you guys can see that, right?
Yep.
Learn to code, they said. So as I said, this is sort of a preview and overview of what I'll plan to do as a longer article, because I think this is such a serious topic that evidence and proof points are extremely important. So learn to code. Let's think about that, right? So what this mostly relates to is AI displacing software engineers? I've been a software engineer for more than 35 years, probably more than 37 years. And it deeply saddens me to understand that we are losing the profession of programming. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because from a realist point of view, you have to accept certain things. And if an AI can code better than a human programmer, then that's what you should do. And that's debatable, but it is very clear. And as you'll see from the evidence that I've gathered so far, and there's more coming in every single day, This is a very important topic, and that's a good thing. And you have arguments on both sides. But it's sort of ironic, though, especially this phrase, because they've used this phrase for so long to talk about every sort of job displacement. It was always learn to code. Well, if you just learn to code, you'll be fine. It's very ironic that the builders of this AI have become its first casualties.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay. So that's what this slide basically says. It's the ultimate irony. Software engineers created a technology called large language models that would displace software engineers. We've been building abstraction layers for decades. And this is one of the arguments that says this is not a big deal. I don't particularly agree with this argument, but the argument has been, oh, we've been making programming easier for decades. Even high-level programming languages are a form of taking it away from the priesthood and bringing it to the average user. But of course, nothing to the point where somebody with no programming skill, of course, using natural language, can create a fully executable system. That's what we have today. That is continuing. I do not believe that trend will decrease. I believe that trend will increase. The interesting thing, of course, is large language models started out as focusing on researching language translation. Unfortunately, programming languages is a language, which is ideal for translation because they're formal languages with very strict rules, and they have lots of training data. All these great open source projects that are very high quality code from which to train these large language models on. So the ultimate irony that we created a technology that is making us obsolete, the creators of the technology obsolete. Adding insult to injury, not only are we creating something that's replacing ourselves, but the very slogan, learn to code, was what they told every other former displaced group of workers. And of course, it's basically saying that, oh, programming is safe, future-proof skill. You learn to code and you'll be fine. Of course, what we're seeing now, as I said, this is an absolute insult. Now, there's been other insults to programmers. You could argue that H-1B visas are an insult to programming, or that the fact that software engineers are not licensed like every other engineering profession. So, in my particular opinion, we have been disrespected for a number of years. And this is sort of just like the final nail in the coffin there, where if you think you can do cheap labor like we're just cogs, or you think that it's okay not to have a mark of professionalism and accountability to have people sign off for your code, well, you're going to, in essence, either A, get the slop that you deserve, and there's an interesting point to that, or B, get somebody totally unaccountable.
Yeah.
And this is the sad part for me personally. And it's funny, I have seen in the last several days, multiple people on blog posts and stuff, basically mourning the fact that creating good quality code, which they spent a lifetime perfecting, is now seen as not valuable. And again, part of that disrespect has occurred longer than that. And I know, I'm pretty sure I know why it occurred. But it's still, it occurred for several reasons. One, software was seen as the golden goose, and lawmakers didn't want to kill the golden goose by putting in regulation. And there's also that societies like the ACM said, oh, it moves too fast. You can't get it licensed, which is a ridiculous comment. But anyway,
What does the ACM stand for, please?
Sure. The Association of Computing Machinery. There's two major societies that most programmers belong to, or have belonged to, which is either the IEEE, um, or the Association of Computing Machinery. The IEEE, more than a decade ago, was strongly pushing and in favor of licensing software engineers. And Texas was going to do it. The ACM came out, and this is, like I said, probably it could have been even, it's either 15, could even be 15 years ago or 20 years ago. The ACM came out and said, no, software moves too fast. It's still in its early formative stages, but not formative enough where you can't have it easily reproducible by an AI. So obviously, in my opinion, their arguments have been proven false. As well as, here's another way, which I disagreed with them at the time, that there was a core that has been much more solid. And then obviously at the fringes, things evolve, things change, you get that. But it's not the core, and never was the core of software engineering. So anyway, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about some hard facts. Over 80% of developers are now using AI coding tools. And that's been from some surveys that have been taken, etc. Which again makes sense because, as an example, there used to be a government statistic, and it was like a qualified software engineer will produce, 6.4 lines of debugged code every hour, something ridiculous like that, some very small number. But they're of course adding in everything. When they say debug line, it means any rework, anything. But it was still a fairly low figure when we used to count lines of code, and lines of code was how your productivity was judged. So let's just take that for a minute. As you know, an AI can generate thousands of lines of code in 20 seconds, 30 seconds, So efficiency-wise, you're not going to beat AI. And I do believe the quality part of AI will continue to get better and better linearly. So, but it does not mean that coding is not dead. Coding is dead. Coding that I knew, that I grew up on, that you've been doing too, is dead. As you can see, other thought leaders have come up, and Carpathy had a good post on Twitter. He was basically like, he came to the same conclusion. He's like, yeah, I haven't really done any manual coding now in 6 months. It's all just directing the AI.
Can I have a question?
Say again?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I thought, if I understood AI, that it's not really creating, is it? Like, don't you need software engineers to create new things? Or is AI literally, from what it knows, creating new code? Is that why you're saying that your coding is dead? Because you don't need you guys, like the creativity of your mind, or
I'll give you a really simple example. I just saw an advertisement yesterday where it was the business folks, and the business folks in an office. One of them was like, "Look, I created an app," and it's just like, "Look," and then one of the other ones says, "You created an app." I forget, or whatever. Susie created an app. Oh my God! And they all go around Susie, and one of them says, "Well, Susie, can that do business? Can you do a dashboard?" She's like, types in a prompt. It does now, which is a little bit of ridiculous, but the short answer is yes. They're creating fully blown apps from prompts,
Right.
and that will continue. Again, look at our cousin Rob. He's created a fully blown app, and it's a fairly sophisticated application. So again, not to say that there is not problems. The quality is still an issue, and especially for large scale programs. But when you look at the very fast pace of Anthropic and OpenAI now, and even all the other ones, there's a good dozen serious players. It's the progress will continue linearly, and I am fully confident that even it'll keep rising up the food chain. It'll keep eating the food chain.
I can't believe that you had me within a few hours creating a Bible Jeopardy, and I know nothing
Yeah.
about coding. Like I know enough that I thought I would just be dangerous, but it was coming along, and it was only a couple hours, and I was on my way. Yes, I needed Mike to help. Like Mike said, you got to get over these hiccups, but if you get over those hiccups, I mean, I basically was coding better than Christian within an hour. No, all right.
That wouldn't be hard to do. But
Yeah, go ahead,
let
Christian.
me guess at what technology stack it used. Probably Next.js or something with React. When you were
Probably.
creating something, 90% of the time it's using the stacks that are Next.js or React or something.
Yeah, there was an interesting
There's
article today.
definitely a limitation on. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. Oh, I
I
didn't
was
try.
just going to say, if it's something, even something like with Roblox, it doesn't know Lua that good. Doesn't know a lot of languages as good because it's going off of what the most prevalent was that it was trained on. So if it's
Correct.
someone creates something new or figures out a different way, like the web, something else comes along opposite other than the web, it's not going to know anything about that. It's
That's
not going to
correct.
know
But it wasn't
fucking
trained on
one
it.
fucking thing about it. Nope. It's not going to know anything about some new language that someone creates or does that maybe is 10 times better than anything we have. We don't know.
The scary part there, though, Christian, think about this, because I saw an article today about how this could kill off open source in this way, since it's always gravitating towards the mean of what which is basically what it's been trained on. That means it's only going to settle on the currently most popular libraries. So the majority of software is only going to focus on those.
Yes.
So it really disincentivizes even creating a new one. Not that there won't be anybody creating them, but if the ability for it to get populated is significantly harder, that's a significant disincentive. So we don't even know. It could be a serious unintended consequences where because of this, our innovation will dip. It's already talking about other people talking about, like, take education, where kids will lose critical thinking skills if you don't make them think. So,
Absolutely.
yep.
Christian, was that your point?
Yeah. What'd you miss? I thought it was clear. What
Nope.
what's the thing is that if it's only, just like Mike said, if it's only using React, which is primarily what it uses in some form, it'll use Next.js is like a full stack React thing. So if it's only using React and everything's being generated, like if you say create me a widget on thing, it's going to probably use React or something. It's
Right. It will use the most popular
what it
technology. And if
defaults
you
to.
don't know any better, it's not going to do
What does it
anything.
matter? If it works, it works. But the point is that you are limiting to only one thing. And we've only created, what we're used to is like, it has a database and it queries the database and presents it to the user in some kind of model view,
Right.
whatever. And, we're used to this way, but that doesn't mean that's human innovation we'd go away from it at some point and figure out a new way. But if like Mike's saying, if you're only going on this one thing, that's all we're going to do.
And take that example a little farther. As I've argued multiple times, the current web is still a kludge. It's taking a document, what was created as a document sharing mechanism, and turned it into an application platform. So it basically does both now pretty sucky. It gets the job done, but not in an elegant way, not streamlined.
And object-oriented programming is basically what all of it's all about too. That's just one paradigm of
Right.
programming.
Yeah.
Really,
That's another risk too. There's in these programming forums, a lot of times I see all the time, especially on Hacker News, people introducing new programming languages because they're experimenting. They try a programming language and they're like, I don't like A, B, and C. So they said, I'm going to try to create my own programming language. Another disincentive. Why even bother? your codes, if the AI is generating all the code and all the code's going to gravitate towards the top 5 languages, the probability of yours getting any serious traction is significantly decreased.
But Mike, I wonder what also your opinion of, let's say before, after the phone came out and apps and stuff, and that, but what do you, maybe in the 20s and stuff, 2020s, it seemed like to me, being a novice, is also that a lot of like constant, they'll put out stuff that's semi broken and constantly patching it. And like the amount of updates you get for everything on your phone, it's constantly updating and patching it. Like everything's constantly. So that to me is like seems like a thing that you'd say, well, it's not really that solid of a thing. It's sort of, they always need to work it and fix it.
Our software still sucks. I mean, iOS 26.2.1, which I was forced, because I had automatic updates on, forced to update for the iPhone. You'll see it has this, it has what they call it. I don't know if you could see that, a glass. They call this the glass interface. Anyway, long story short, do not disturb, which is a pretty important function for me as a do not disturb button, is broken. Do not disturb lets phone calls through. Just yesterday, actually, when I said I took a nap. Well, oh no, I'm sorry, the day before, Friday, it woke me up from a nap because stupid do not disturb feature is broken on the latest update. And like you said, they don't care. They're just going to, okay, they'll put out another update in a couple of week or two. But they have been beta testing on users for years. And it's really sad, you know. I think that's part of, my opinion, the idiot Zuckerberg's move fast and break things. Now, to his credit, he has since sort of said he doesn't do that anymore, disagrees that that's the right approach. But that's been the approach of software for a lot of years. Move fast and break things. Just get it out there, get the product, and get mass number of users adopting it, and then worry about the rest later on. So quality has always been an afterthought in software for quite a number of years.
I had a discussion. I was working with ChatGPT on an issue in my drainage, and I was feeding it a lot of information, but I was getting very clear and giving it some paperwork that was clearly saying that, let's just for simplicity say A plus B equals C. And he was convinced, or it was convinced, A plus B equaled D. And it was trying to convince me that A plus B did not equal C. And I literally had to quote the paperwork saying, but it says right here, this is A plus B equals C. And then, oh, you're right, A plus B does equal C. It gave me elaborate reasoning to how A plus B equaled D. Like you could not imagine, pages and pages, not a little reasoning. And it stuck to its guns until I literally quoted verbatim A plus B equals C. It says, and then it switched. So my question is, like in my world, to me, first off, I'm thinking of changing ChatGPT to like Grok or something like that, because this was like completely off the rails. And anybody without knowing that A plus B equaled C could have been convinced that A plus B equaled D. And it's like, is that not the way it is in coding? Because you get the code, and when it does what you want, it can't be hallucinating?
Oh, no, it's always hallucinating. It just, some hallucinations are useful. In other words, Joe, it just generates tokens based on words. It just generates words based on its training, right? So it's just based on probability. If you take 1 billion pages of the internet and you ask who is George Washington, a lot of pages on the internet will tell you who is George Washington. So it's an easy answer. It knows that that's a well-worn pathway through the matrix of all the artificial neurons. So that's the way you got to think about it now. But still, we already know this technology is probabilistic and flawed and will still hallucinate. So here's a real question, though. Here's an interesting question. Where's the accountability? First of all, on the training data, so Anthropic has admitted that they have used several of my books with my co-authors, and they will be paying us some small amount of settlement because, of course, it used lots of copyrighted works, and you're not supposed to be able to do that. OpenAI is still fighting it, trying to say that they don't know anything, but of course they really do too. What about all the movies it was trained on? So you're at a point where it's going to replace movie stars, because it's going to be a lot cheaper to do an AI movie star than pay, ScarJo, $20 million. But you were trained on all her stuff. So you're generating stuff based on copyrighted material. Same thing with music. Where's the accountability? But let's talk about more serious accountability before we get to some proof points. What happens when an AI software kills somebody? Who's accountable? There was no programmer. The company that created the AI is just going to say, we didn't tell it to do that. That's a prompt. The person who did the prompt's going to say, or if they even know who did the prompt, well, I just described what I needed in English. I can't help it if it was wrong. So everybody points their finger at everybody else, and nobody's responsible. And software has already killed people. There are well-documented cases from buggy software. So it's going to be a very seriously. And honestly, it has only made the progress it's made, and will only continue to make the progress it's made if it is not made to be accountable. Because this progress would significantly slow down if you made it be accountable.
So then, Mike, when I said that, I thought when you did code that it created code and the code did what you wanted, and that's how you prevent hallucinations within AI, because you're literally generating something that if I gave it to Christian, he would get the same answer as me, and if I gave it to you, you get the same answer as me.
So that's called deterministic, right? So that you are correct. A lot of times, especially with numbers, anything dealing with numbers, but of course, they just didn't use. They use it's actually very intelligent, right? If you know large language models are bad in numbers, now they've been getting a lot better, but if you know they're bad at numbers, they basically said, if somebody asks something with numbers, sidestep that, and I'm going to change the problem. I'm going to create a program to answer their question instead of trying to answer their question directly, because programs are deterministic. And as you said, every time you run it, given the same input, it'll give you the same output.
Very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's why you believe the collapse of coding is occurring, because it's deterministic?
Coding is a very formal language, and there's a lot of good training data. Again, and so there's a lot less hallucinations in code because it's very formal, and you can always, if it doesn't compile, it's not going to create an executable. So it's kind of an easy catch to catch hallucinations, because it just won't compile, it won't work.
I got you.
So anyway,
wow.
No, I mean it's incontrovertible. Coding is dead. Everybody, more than 80% of people are using coding agents, and that's really without agents taking off. Now, Anthropic and OpenAI have released new agent stuff in the last week. So coding agents, it's not going to be even a single person taking your job. It could be 10 agents, 20 agents, 100 agents, all trained in different aspects of your job. So think about that. You may say, well, one AI can't be as better than me. Okay, what about 100 AI? What about 1,000 AI agents? Can they be better than you? Probably.
Wait, so an agent is exactly, it's more specialized?
No, an agent is an autonomous running program, an intelligent program that runs autonomously given an objective. So you say, go build me a program, and it's not going to come back. It's not going to give you one little thing. It's going to keep going. It may have to go for hours and hours. It may have to do research. It may have to do a whole bunch of things. So an agent is basically gives you autonomy. It's what works on its own. Like you could say, hey, here's an agent. Go make me a doctor's appointment and find me a doctor in my current doctor. Actually, this happened to us. My current doctor stopped practicing. Find me a new doctor and then book an appointment with it within the month of March. So it may take several days for it to actually do that. It's got to call somebody on the phone. It's got to find research who's the best doctor in the area for what your needs are, blah, blah, blah. But it would work autonomously.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So that's agents. And that's going to help, but that's going to also help climb that food stack. And that's kind of the last one. So let's just talk about some of the coding ones. The graph there is Stack Overflow collapse. Of course, I don't need a question and answering site on coding if I just ask ChatGPT. So you could see the very steep decline, basically going a little bit before, it started a little bit before then, 2022, but after 2022, basically the writing's on the wall, and Stack Overflow is now basically nothing, a shell of its former self.
I don't understand what that means. What do you mean Stack Overflow collapse?
I'm sorry, Stack Overflow is the question and answering site for programmers to ask questions. And it was a very popular site. I mean, look at the number of posts, number of questions answered per month. That's the left side of your graph. Over 200,000 at its peak. I mean, it's a very popular site. And now it's down into, less than 10,000. It's down almost to nothing.
Holy crap. Luckily, I didn't have stock in that sucker. Holy crap.
It shows. And again, this is also now Google was smart. Again, search suffered too. Search will continue to suffer because people want answers. In fact, just this last week, there was, maybe 1 week or 2 weeks ago, there was a little bit of a crash in SaaS stock, software as a service. Because if you extrapolate this, that business people will do more coding, then you don't need B2B software. So software's companies started crashing on the stock market because the investors are extrapolating, saying, if this trend holds, software companies, they're not going to grow. They're going to start shrinking. And I actually think that's a fair estimation. Software company. Now, having done that, you saw some people come out of the woodwork, like a few CEOs and CTOs saying, no, this is not going to happen. AI is not going to take all the programmers' jobs, because when you look back in history, they've said this every single time for every major new technology, that it was going to take all the jobs away. And it never happened. It always created more jobs than it took. True statement in history. The one big difference was those were all niche things. The loom was for niche sewers.
The
loom? The loom. The Luddite.
You can't come up with a more recent one. The loom? What the hell was that? 1816? The loom?
Well, again, take factories, right? They've done that. Even computers in general. Just early computing, they said, oh my God, it's going to take away jobs. So there's every major new technology has been looked on as a double-edged sword.
With the World Wide Web, right?
Instead of jobs. Go ahead, Christian.
The World Wide Web is supposed to, all brick and mortar stores were going to shut down, but
right.
But there is obviously the mom and pop stores by like Amazon and Walmart. I mean, they have, as a result of, consolidating the location that you can purchase things. I mean, so that's interesting that they said that. I mean,
no, the internet's a great example, right? And it has caused disruption. Take journalism, right? News sites, significant disruption. And what was their chant was, well, just learn to code. Of course, I think it was the Biden era. When he stopped the pipeline, that's what he told all the oil workers doing the pipeline. Well, just learn to code.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
No, true story. Learn to code.
Those guys that are out in the field that can barely rub two sticks together. I mean, they're putting in a pipeline. They're freaking That's like telling a plumber to start the code. I
Correct.
mean,
Right.
it's just difficult. I'm not saying it's
So we've
stupid.
never had a point, if you think about it in terms of AI, we've never had a technology when you looked at the category of potential displacement, it was all knowledge workers, all programmers. We've never had it that broad. It's always been a sort of a small niche. So we are potentially now, and I say this is an important proof point, left unchecked. And I don't believe it'll go in a straight line. I do believe you'll start seeing it force it to be fall under some regulations. And DeSantis, who I love, is a governor. He's not my governor, but Ron DeSantis was just coming out the other day saying we need to have some AI regulation. This is like yesterday, saying we can't just let this run amok, run unchecked. We need to have some regulation. So let's look at a few other proof points. Stanford University recently analyzed ADP payroll data, and it showed that hiring for especially junior programmers was down significantly. An MIT project called Iceberg, which is still available, it said at this point, it's trying to do like a simulation of where AI's capabilities are and at its current skill level, what percentage of work could it take over? So it was saying right now, and I'd have to look at its last time it produced a report, that 12% of all labor could be taken over today by AI. So, and again, we'll see that increase. And Anthropic has done a number of studies studying the detailed software development process and looking at what parts of the software development process is being taken over by AI. And basically what they're seeing is now it's kind of moving up the chain from small, very modular tasks to higher level tasks, larger modules, full programs, etc.
Mike, who's Anthropic? Is that just another company?
It's a good point. It's basically it's like Coke and Pepsi, right? So OpenAI, in fact, today's the Super Bowl. Anthropic has at least two or three commercials coming out today at the Super Bowl on AI, poking fun at OpenAI for trying to put ads into their chatbot.
Yeah.
So the free version of Open, and I am seriously considering switching to Anthropic, but I'm not there yet. Because Anthropic
does Claude.
Correct. Anthropic does Claude. So if you look at Claude, the Claude chatbot, and they have several varieties of it, is from Anthropic. So the two or three, there's about four big ones, right? There's OpenAI, they have ChatGPT. There's Anthropic, they have Claude. There's Google, they have Gemini. And there's XAI, which has Grok. Those, you would argue, are the big ones. Now, China did one called DeepSeek, which basically stole the answers that ChatGPT was producing and used it to train their model. And now it's not as good, but it's pretty damn close. And they released it as open source. And there's a few others. Qwen is from Alibaba, and there's a few others. Meta has one called
Alexa Plus. Amazon released their Alexa Plus, which I haven't used it yet. As far as they have there's like a web page now that you could use it in, but I have it connected to the smart speaker, and I haven't really used it that much.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, they've had Alexa for a while, of course. It's kind of like Siri, right? Siri you can even find the patents on Siri. Siri used to use basically totally rule-based, technology, rule-based expert system. Like, what's the steps to order food from a restaurant? What's the steps to make a reservation? And that's what Siri used, but now they're all switching to using large language models.
And so, Mike, obviously, I'm really now upset at ChatGPT from this last interaction, to the point where I put it into Grok and I put it into the one that just comes right off of Microsoft, I mean Google, right off of Google. You just can
that's
Gemini.
That's Gemini.
Both of those answered correctly on its first attempt. A plus B equals C. So I'm really thinking of changing. I've never heard of Anthropic. Do they have a way to test this? Like, it's
Yeah,
time to move
theirs
on.
is also offering free. Again, you'll see it today on the Super Bowl. You can go to Claude, look up Claude, and you'll see it.
Okay, I was just curious. So
Yeah.
what made you think of
I
Claude?
would
I don't want to pay
recommend either trying Gemini or Claude. Both of them are obviously Gemini.
not
Is
Grok,
cool. Yep.
not Grok.
Grok's in the running too, but I don't think I think Anthropic and Gemini are probably going to be better for a little while. I do think
Gemini,
I,
Gemini's
I
three.
think what's different. What the difference is that they're kind of looking at everything. Like so, Anthropic is best known for beating OpenAI in terms of coding tasks. So that's why I'm seriously considering switching my subscription. But I have a lot right now in ChatGPT. So that's why I'm not, I've got a lot of different projects. I got a lot of things I'm working on. So I'm not there yet to make the jump. But if you don't have that, if you don't have a serious investment already in one of them, then I would try either Anthropic or Gemini. For an average user, I'd probably try Gemini. Yeah.
I took a little resentment. The average user, whatever.
I took a little risk. I was a little insulted.
Your amygdala spiked.
Interesting. Accountability void. Wow.
Yeah,
Man, I love your pictures.
this is a
Much
sad.
better than Christians.
He loves that. He always loves to stab you. You
You
bastard.
notice that he likes to dig. He's got to get those digs in.
It must be the sun.
Exactly.
Am I too white today?
Dude, you are freaking white as holy cow. Do you ever get in the sun or is it just
You know how cold it is right now? It's 9 degrees outside.
Yeah,
oh,
9 degrees
very
out.
cold.
And then that's not with the wind. It's so cold. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is bitter. Yeah,
Mm.
so much for global warming. It is bitter cold. It's same here.
it's 80,
It's
80
bitter cold.
degrees here, guys. 80 degrees. 82, 84.
Yeah, and
We're
it's
talking
going to
about
be
a different-
80 Wednesday when I'm flying out there. It's going to be 80.
Right.
It's unbelievable the difference. You know, it's literally, I looked, Chris, you're 5 degrees. I'm 85 degrees. It's
Wow.
freaking unbelievable.
Mm.
And then now you know why you get all the snowbirds, because I don't know how I would die in 5 degrees. I would literally just freaking freeze.
Yeah, doing the snowbird thing's not a bad deal.
All right, go ahead. Accountability.
No,
Sorry.
I was just saying that this is important though. I mean, because the question is, are we just going to go fat, dumb, and happy, rolling down the road with our blinders on, going, everything is wonderful, everything is awesome. Everything is not awesome. This again, and I use them every day too. So I think, and I am not talking about bans. But before we talk about bans, let's just talk about accountability. Like I said, if AI systems are producing production code, who's responsible if somebody gets killed? You know, is it acceptable for open source projects to go the way of the dodo bird? It is acceptable for innovation to come to a halt. So my position would be, if you make them accountable, they're going to go a little slower. But if you keep allowing them, if you look at the Section 230 protection, H-1B leniency, meager antitrust leniency, we have treated the entire technology industry with kid gloves since its inception. And as I've already said, software engineers don't have to be licensed. And the last part just talks about it, how it was treated as speech, not infrastructure. And again, that allowed it to skirt regulation. If we continue with that trend, because again, the golden goose, we want those AI jobs, or there's another point about AI. Well, China and every other industrialized nation is trying to win the AI race. So now you've moved it from just an economic thing to a national security thing. And that also makes it harder to make it accountable, because you want it to progress, because you're in a race with China. Very difficult. But the
So
short
when
answer is,
Loaded. It's such a loaded issue because it also assumes so many things. It's such a like general. I was watching some woman today that's supposedly the godmother of AI. You know, they have these people that were foundational, and she was at Stanford, and she's saying it's so the general. What do they call? When large language models are not general. What do they call that, Mike? Again, where it doesn't have general intelligence.
AGI, artificial general intelligence.
You know, these people that are making billions, they're going to tell you, of course, it's right around the corner. But when you talk to people that are in the know of it, they're saying it's extremely far away. Like where that because, like you're saying with the world model stuff, I was just playing around with. It's called Marble AI. This is what this woman it's called.
I think
Marble from World Labs. World Labs, they are AI, and where you can just take a picture and then allows you to explore that because it generated a world based on that world
right,
model knowledge. I was just fooling around with that before, and but then that's the woman I'm talking about. She was saying it's nowhere close to that.
right.
But then it's so interesting, like you're saying, with they've been treating them with the kids' gloves, and there's no responsibility. It's even just economically what they're saying now that it's only like 7 to 10 companies that are like 45% of the total value of the stock market.
Of the
So when this
S&P
thing goes, but when this bubble, if it does burst, it's going to cause such an economic collapse that, and I think that they're saying OpenAI is running out of money. They have no money. Like in 4 months, they'll be out of money.
Well, I think their hype has been pretty much like you were saying, though, to kind of just get. I almost believe right now, both OpenAI and Anthropic, I think their hype is driven because they just want to get the IPO payout, and then they're not going to care. Then the progress will be whatever the progress is. But like you said, their hype in AGI and the singularity and these ridiculous concepts, because that's you're saying. I'm not even saying that. I'm just bringing up the damage in its current state, because you can lose software engineering jobs without it being conscious, right?
Right.
So I'm not even talking about the singularity or any of that ridiculous junk. I'm just talking about plain old linear progress.
You don't mean 100% dead, though. You're saying that it'll be. You're still going to need some people to be like AI managers that still have to look over it, like supervise it.
Of course.
It can't be completely.
But when you think about the number of AI managers, even my son Gregory works for Geico, and he's like, they probably have more than 1,000, several thousand programmers. I mean, you look at some of these big companies; they have thousands of programmers. You look at knowledge workers. Think about what Elon Musk did with Twitter. When you can fire 70% of the people in a company, and the site still runs pretty damn good, the site still ran. The number of down days, etc., were nothing, and he fired 70% of the people. That shows you how much fluff jobs are out there.
Massive.
And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So, just 2 more slides. This just talks about how, as is getting at, it's not just going to stop at junior programmers. Whether it's, you can see there, code generation, debugging, refactoring. This is what it does now. Test generation, etc. But even the ability to do the architecture, to do, the interpretation of business of how to the best design a system. It'll keep climbing the developer food chain. So the idea being that it's not just going to be, if you're a senior programmer, I mean, it's not going to really affect me. I'm only a few years away from retiring. So, but it's still very sad that this industry, and again, without accountability, just barreling down the road, assuming life is going to be good, we are already losing things. And again, I haven't even touched on education, what our students are losing, because I believe our students are losing things too.
That's an incredible amount, 60 to 80%. It's unbelievable how quickly then. When did AI come out with respect to this OpenAI? Was it 5 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they had
60.
GPT-1, GPT-2. It was really GPT-3 that really launched. That's the one they renamed to Chat GPT, and that was like 2022.
Like Mike was saying though, it's the perfect thing for it because it's really just a set of rules.
Right.
And
Oh,
what
glad you
made a
guys
great,
created.
I mean, the originality is what makes the greatest developers or the great like that. But they also just followed after they had their idea, they followed a set of rules. They had to remember a lot of their, a lot of syntax and all these other things that they had to remember, and they created it with other people and collaboration and stuff, and they made these products. But it is just a set of rules. Ultimately, it's
Yeah. And with open source, all that stuff was there. Everybody could download it, use it. Millions, billions of lines of code were just slurped up and trained all the models.
I remember going back. Christian was telling me when we were like starting to do coding, and he was like, there were these libraries that you could pull that you didn't need to do, this type of an interface because there was already a library for it, and it was like, you know, and it helped you guys create code a lot quicker.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's interesting to understand that AI was created by coders
Yes, of course.
to your own demise.
All right, so let's now. This is the last slide. It's a little bit of speculation, and I do want to caveat this slide. This is if AI progress is unchecked. So my hypothesis here is that what we are seeing in software engineering will be the tip of the iceberg if left unchecked, as we're already seeing now. So the first one, phase one, is going to be, I'd say, 3 to 5 years. I'd say the second phase is knowledge workers, middle managers, analysts. I don't think anybody's going to be legal, HR. But knowledge workers, you're more talking about 5 to 10 year horizon. Which will mean the opportunity or possibility of job displacement for that entire segment. And then phase three, if we have the ability then implant this technology into humanoid robots, then you put on the table all jobs. My plumber, who's actually worried about AI, he literally asked me, could AI steal my job? I said, no, not AI itself, but AI on par with human level intelligence that you implant into a humanoid robot, yes, could take your job. And that,
well, and if I might interject, right now, I believe, like you're saying, I mean, I'm using AI as an arborist. I went out and said, hey, let me take a photo of this. What the hell's wrong with my plant? And it told me. Or I used it for plumbing and I said, how do I do this? And it told me what to do. And then I, did it I'm using it in that already to DIY a lot more things, which I would have never done. I mean, I changed my light things and it was like, it told me step by step, like this wire means this wire means that.
I was telling Christian a while ago, I do think we will have, YouTube will be in trouble when you have AI generated how-to videos, because it will be able to generate a video on your particular hardware, on your particular situation of how to do whatever you're trying to do.
But you've said several times now, if left unchecked, and I would like you to take a moment and define or explain in detail. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, if we put this, then this won't happen? I mean, this seems inevitable.
No, because I don't think these things never move in straight lines, right? And our predictions, all estimates and predictions are notoriously too optimistic in terms of following your straight line analysis. So this is a straight line analysis, but left unchecked means I do not believe it will be left unchecked. When it gets bad, as you could see, even with the SaaS collapse. So if we start seeing where we have certain evidence points, but if we start seeing larger evidence points, like it's really destroying the software engineering industry and not just making it evolve, you're going to start seeing some regulation. you're going to start seeing them lose some court cases, being held accountable. So that's what I mean by being checked. Being checked will be smart regulation, bans in certain circumstances, like we already say, banning cell phones in schools. Absolutely a good thing. Banning young children from social media. Absolutely a good thing. Banning AI in certain situations or for certain things, like, well, I have to think about school, but in certain education contexts, it should be banned. It should be regulated. Well, as an example, with at a minimum transparency. So I don't believe outright bans are going to be the thing to do, because I don't think that ever works. But we do need smart regulation. And here's one other point why we need smart regulation on this. We're just talking about sort of the harmless things, or it's not harmless because workers are getting displaced, but the non-malicious things. Now take into effect bad actors, terrorists, criminal organizations, average criminals, scam artists, con artists, et cetera, et cetera. What about those people now using this advanced technology? So if left unchecked, we're going to have all sorts of unintended consequences that we didn't expect. And do you really want to give the ability for a criminal organization like a cartel that's got a lot of money, the ability to use a humanoid robot with implanted intelligence to kill anybody at any time, accountability free, risk free? Because they could. I mean, robotic soldiers are the perfect unaccountable weapon.
Or some doomsday cult that genetically engineers some virus or some shit. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, very good point. Absolutely good point.
Yeah,
That's why we can't just let this run off unchecked. We got to start thinking about, well, what are the consequences of this, and what are the unintended consequences, and maybe we need to at least think about it before we just jump off the bridge.
Man, that's
so much money being thrown around also that it's going to be that the corruption level is so high.
Yeah.
Mom
money.
Today came by for a little bit. I permitted her into the house a little bit. and she said that she got some letter that had 5 checks in it totaling 150,000. Took it to the bank. The bank was just mesmerized by the degree that these checks looked real, and they have to go to their fraud department, and they have to call the lady and see if there is a lady and if the lady exists. I mean, they said it looked like a perfect check, and you just wonder, is AI already getting into that? That's a $3.4 billion criminal activity that they do, scamming old people per year. Are we freaking? That's an industry unto itself.
Yeah.
So how AI is going to help that is, like you're saying, scary. It's just unbelievable.
We can't just march into it with our blinders on. We can't. We need to now. Totally. We will need to, and again, so we need to be watching for the evidence points. We need to be being active in terms of absolutely contacting politicians, stuff like that. But I think it may even get more serious than that. Let me just say, I mean, why wouldn't software engineers be in a union? Unionize. And I'm not a huge fan of unions, but I am a fan of people not being taken advantage of. And look what happened with the longshoremen. The longshoremen basically stopped automation at the ports because they went on strike. And they said, no, I'm not going to let you totally eliminate all the jobs or even a huge percentage of the jobs. So, and I will tell you, the stock market is actually an early indicator of this. The fact that all of a sudden politicians took notice because the software companies' stocks started crashing is a good thing. And that's why I don't believe it'll move in a straight line, because this is a global phenomenon. You will have countries like Europe that is more pro regulation. that will start regulating it, and we'll see what happens. But I do think we can't go on with our eyes closed, and we need to kind of think about what the path. And I do believe there's a path forward. It's not all doom and gloom.
It's doom and gloom.
Even for
I
programmers.
know. I'm going to blow my brains off after this. What the hell, man? My job's gone in 5 years.
Yeah. It is sad though. For me right now, it is a sad time. Even just like you said, the things that are incontrovertible, losing the not coding by hand anymore. It's a sad thing. And I'm sure other people have said that. There are probably, like I said, with the loom, or even with journalists, who were saying, look at all this slop out there on this thing called the internet, or even journalists having to fight for clickbait. They turned their industry from something seeking the truth to something chasing clicks. And I'm sure there's a lot of journalists that were sad, and I'll admit it. I'm sad. And again, the irony being, we were the ones that were supposed to be immune, learn to code. That's how we started this discussion. Learn to code. So we've added insult to injury by learn to code being turned on its head. And
I think it's going to be trades and stuff, like people with trade skills. Those are going to be the most valuable people.
I think trades are going to be are safe for a while until humanoid robots are serious. And again, even then, so let's just briefly talk about it. Let's just say this is inevitable, because humanoid robots are going to happen.
Yeah.
Robots in general are going to happen. They're going to proliferate.
But that's what you're talking about now, more than a decade away, at least.
I think so, yeah. I think to get it right. Although I read an article today that said they're putting a lot of money into this and making significant progress. We'll see. I'm saying a decade before it really hits mainstream. It will be out. It's already out. You will see in the next 3 years. You'll see some of the early. You've already seen some of the early ones, right?
Yeah, they fall down pretty easily, these things.
Yeah, they're not that good yet. So that's why I'm saying yes. I do believe the humanoid robot part is more than a decade out. One thing I wanted to just point out, though, too, if you think about the other areas of this, like some people like Elon Musk have said, oh, UBI we'll just all have to get UBI. So basically the government will cut everybody in the country a check and we'll do nothing. And the robots will do everything. Is that really the life we want? I would say no. I'd say I don't, that sucks. I don't want that future. So we need to figure out a way not to create that future.
Yeah.
Did you see that guy? He's a funny guy. He's a very wholesome comedian. He's really hot right now. He had an hour special on Netflix. Really funny guy.
What, Mike Epps?
No.
Guy,
He's white, and he's got this girl. His daughter comes on. He's like, and he's really funny, very clean. He's a white dude with a beard. You can't miss him. Anyway, he's like, man, I was in school, and they were teaching me typing, and I'm thinking to myself, typing? When the hell am I ever gonna use typing, man? Cursive's it, and it's gonna be the hot trend. And and he's just never curses. Really, I mean, if you guys want to laugh, he's got an hour. Because after that, I mean, come on. So only way out of this is to laugh. But he's just a really, really funny. Just so you guys, because it was funny. Here he is. Nate Bargatze. Very funny dude. Very funny dude.
Cool.
Work the hours.
Also, we got the Super Bowl today, Joe. So I don't know if you're gonna watch the Super Bowl. There's a few interesting storylines. I don't watch that. One of them will be the youngest quarterback ever if he wins it. Youngest quarterback to win a Super Bowl if the young guy works.
The youngest.
So it's like youngest versus the veteran. There's a veteran guy who they didn't think very much of. I don't know too much about it, but it should be entertaining.
Yeah, I don't even know who's playing, so you can tell.
All right, gentlemen.
All right, guys, that was
Well,
good. Good one,
that
Mike.
was a good one. I think I don't know if we're gonna do.
Arrivederci.